guys, I'm Mr. Cockrum. I'm another one of the music teachers here in Visalia, and I'm going to talk to you today about playing your snare drum. Now, one thing you really want to remember, those of you who are coming in to play drums, you're not learning how to play drum set. You're learning how to play a single drum, and you're learning how to play it in a concert style. So if you're looking to learn how to play drum set and play some great rock music, this isn't the place to be necessarily. But if you want to learn some great technique, this is where you want to be. The first thing I want to show you is how to put your drum together. A lot of drummers don't put their drums together correctly and have them in weird spaces and weird places, and it affects the way the drum sounds. Now, when you get a drum, remember, the schools don't have drums, so you're going to need to get your own. When you get a drum, you'll probably get a drum with some kind of a case like these. You might get some kind of a soft case like this one, or a hard case like this. Either way, be sure that you're taking very good care of your drum and that you pack your drum away carefully each time you finish playing it. Inside your case, you should have the snare drum and all of the hardware you need to put it together. Take your snare drum and put it in the other side of the case. If you have to, you can set it on the floor, but be careful because if you damage the rim, it could change the way the drum sounds. You may also have a practice pad in it like this to make the drum quieter. More than likely, you won't want to use this pad when we're in practice. This is one of the typical examples of the bottom part of a stand. It's a standard tripod where the legs spread apart, and you use a small screw to keep those legs in place. Unfortunately, a lot of the basic drums that you buy will have pretty flimsy stands. They will get the job done, but they'll wiggle and they'll wobble a little bit. If you can, take a little extra time and get a really good stand. Otherwise, we'll make do with what you have. Make sure that the base is spread fairly wide so that there's a good base of support underneath the drum. If these legs are up like this, where you don't have a very wide base of support, the drum will fall over. And not only will it make a loud sound, it could damage the drum and affect the way the drum sounds. The top part of the stand usually has a piece like this. Now this top part is actually broken, it's disconnected, but this will let me show you the piece in detail. It usually has 3 little prongs or arms like this, and 2 of them spread out. And the key is that when you put your drum in the stand, you want the drum to sit on the rubber portion of each of the arms. Not only does that keep the drum a little more secure, but it affects the drum, keeping extra vibration from metal to metal contact from happening. Again, affecting the way the drum sounds. I'm going to get out another top portion for a minute so you can see one that works. I have one already set up over here. I'll show you how I set this one up. Usually the piece that you'll find in the case comes in something like this where it's flat, and it has a hinge here and it has the post and the 3 arms. You're going to want to loosen this wing nut here so that you can move this easily, and you want it to be at a 90-degree angle as much as possible. Remember your geometry. The arms need to be perpendicular to the post. Then tighten this wing nut as much as you can. Now sometimes there are little teeth in this hinge that keep it from moving back and forth. If you don't have it tight enough, those teeth will wiggle and wobble just like the bottom will. Make sure that you move it back and forth just a little bit to get the teeth set in the gears, and then tighten that wing nut again. Then drop it down into your stand. Now down here I have 2 different bases. One of them just uses a wing nut like this to hold the top of the stand at the height it's supposed to be. Other stands like this one will use a lever system, and it has these plastic pieces in here, and once you set it in, you close this lever and that holds the support post tightly in place. Whichever type of mechanism you get, be sure and spend some time practicing putting it together so you can do it not only quickly but easily, and you can do it without damaging your drum. Do not put the drum in the stand until you're finished putting it together. Okay? Thanks. Once you have the stand put together, at least part of the way, like this, you're going to want to make sure that your arms are the right distance. Typically, a good place to start is to bring it in about this far. You'll notice that the top arm, or the one in the middle, is above these other two. Another way to do it would be to put the drum in and move the arm in. But in practice, I find this to be very easy and a good place to start. Spread the arms out, and then bring your drum and put it in on top, like this. Make sure that the drum is sitting in very close, or in on these rubber pads. You'll notice that there's two little surfaces it can sit in here. The first one is this top piece here. The second one is down in here in the second curve. Either one of those is fine, but try and have the drum sitting in the same one. And it's always best to shoot for the top bend for your best support and your best sound. So here I'm going to have to take the drum out, and I'm going to have to adjust the size here. There's a little nut at the back of some of these stands that allows you to lock the centerpiece into position as it moves back and forth. Once you get it to the place where you know it needs to be sure and tighten that so that the drum doesn't fall out. Right now, I'm using the technique of adjusting the slide arm while the drum is actually in the stand. I'm just going to tip up the edge, keeping a hand down here on the stand, and I'm going to use my thumb while I'm lifting up the drum with my fingers. I'm just going to push the drum in with my thumb. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. Just be sure that whatever you're doing, you're being very careful not to drop your drum. Because if you drop your drum, not only will it make a loud noise, but it will affect the way it sounds. Now, when you set the drum up, it's important that you set the drum up at about belly button height. That means that the top of the drum, where the rim is, should be about at your belly button. Now, for me, this is a smaller stand, so it comes well below my waist. So to show you how to do this properly, or where the drum should be, I'm going to put the drum on top of the case. I don't recommend you do this unless you absolutely have to. Now that I have the drum on top of the case, this is a little closer to where you would want it mounted. This is actually a little high for me, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust the height. When you're adjusting the height of your stand, if you're making it higher or lower, a lot of you will be tempted to do it with the drum in the stand. You can do that, but you run the risk of dropping your drum. It's better if you get your height adjusted ahead of time and then put your drum in. With a little practice, you'll get it. If you have to do it with the drum in, be sure that you keep a firm grip down here with your hand so that you can support the drum as you bring it down lower. The problem is, you have to come down a little bit, re-tighten it, and then come up to make sure it's at the right height. This is pretty good. So we'll go from here and we'll show you how to approach the drum and how to play it properly. Now, the problem is, while I've got a drum here, I need something to play it with. For that, I'm going to need sticks. Now, when you get sticks from the drum store, you could get any number of different kinds of sticks. Let me show you what I mean. There are all kinds of different drumsticks out there, and each one of them has something very specific about it, because different drumsticks make different sounds. Some drumsticks, like these, will have very, very small tips. These are great sticks, and they have a very pinpoint sound. You can be very accurate with where you hit the drum. Unfortunately, I don't really think you need tips this small for starting. Most of you will probably end up with a pair of sticks like this that have very, very big tips. Big tips tend to produce a lot of sound. And while that can be fun when you're playing on a drum set, when you're playing concert style, it's not the best thing. So don't try and get a stick, if you can help it, that has really wide tips or really long tips. Also, some sticks will have nylon tips. These are tips that are designed to get especially bright sounds out of cymbals. You don't really need to get these either, but if you do, it's okay. The problem is nylon tips can fall off, and then you have just a little stub to play with. Be very careful with your sticks. Your sticks are how you play your drum, and they can break. They're not toys. Don't sword fight with them. Don't use them as spears. Don't try to hit one another. Don't even joke that way. If you do, we could say that you're actually fighting, or you could be charged with assault. Don't let this happen to you.
Don't let anybody mess with your stuff.
Generally, the best kind of sticks you can get are a good pair of wood sticks that have a medium-sized tip, regardless of the shape. They could be round, they could be oval-tipped, or they could have the teardrop shape like these are. Any of this general medium-sized tip is where you want to go. A lot of sticks will have a number attached to them. If you buy that number of stick, you get the same thing every time. A real good size of sticks to use is the 5A. If you can find a pair of sticks that's a 5A, that's a good place to start. A little smaller pair of sticks with a thinner diameter is the 7A. Those are also very good. Any size along that line will work well, though. When you're playing the drum with a pair of sticks, you are going to hit the drum, but it's important to remember that you're not out to kill the drum. And if you hit a drum very hard, it will make a very loud noise. That will sound something like this. That's not a good thing. There are times where you will play loud. This is not one of them. Now, before we talk about how you play the drum, we need to talk about how your drum sounds. There are some drums that will sound very good coming right out of the case, kind of like this one does. But most of the time, the drums that you'll find out of the cases will not sound as good. They'll sound something like this. They'll sound really low. They'll sound like you're playing two notes at the same time. They'll sound a little messy, or the note will last a little too long. And things like that need to be fine-tuned by your director. If you feel like your drum doesn't sound right, talk to your director about it. And if your director has any questions, have him come see me, and I'll show him how to get the drum into proper playing shape. Do not try and adjust the heads on your own. The tightness of these heads is what makes the drum sound the way it sounds. Unfortunately, a lot of drummers and percussionists will start to adjust these heads on their own without knowing what they're doing, and they'll damage their drum permanently. That means forever, and the drum will never play right again. Again, if you have questions about that, you need to talk to your director. If you're not careful, you could end up with things like this happening, where because you put too much tension on the head, you cause it to crack and break. And that can end up being a real problem in the future. Thankfully, because this cracks on the bottom head, we're still in good shape, but it won't last for too much longer. Okay, how to play the drum. Basically, what you're looking for is you want to play the drum softly. You want to play the drum in a very relaxed way. Okay? The key to playing the drums well is not how hard you can hit, not how fast you can hit, it's how relaxed you are when you do it. And to do that, there are a couple of things you need to do. First off, be sure that your shoulders are relaxed. If you're playing with your shoulders up tight like this, it's not going to sound good. At the same time, you don't want to pull them back, or you don't want to have them all forward like this. Be sure your shoulders are relaxed. Be sure that you're standing up straight, so that your back is well supported, because you're going to be holding a pair of sticks out in front of you, and although it may seem like it's not much to lift, over time it can start to get a little tiring. Also important is how you hold the sticks. You'll notice that I'm not holding them tight in my fist like a hammer when I play. There's a very specific way you want to hold the stick. To do that, look at the stick and find a point right about here on the stick. And you're going to want to take that spot, and you're going to want to set it in this joint of your finger. Let's zoom in close so you can see this. There's this little crease right here in between the top part of the finger and the bottom part of the finger. That's where the finger bends. Right in that curve is where you want to set the stick. I'll show you sideways like this. Then you're going to put your thumb on top. You're going to hold the stick forward like this, and it's basically cradled here. Now, a lot of drummers stop here and they think it's great to hold the stick like this and start hammering away like it's a hammer. That's not the case. This is not a good way to hold the stick. It does work for drum set technique, but not for this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn our hand sideways so that the palm's facing down, so that the knuckles are basically facing towards the director, and so the tips of the stick's at an angle, and the tip of the stick is hovering over just south of the center of the drum. Not the exact center, just a little bit closer to you. When you hold the drum, you may need to, or when you hold the stick, you may have to step back from the drum a little bit to make sure that you're not tightened up and you're not standing too close. And you want your elbow here to be bent but relaxed. Most drummers think you use your elbow and your whole arm to hit the drum. That's not the case. There's very little movement that happens here in the elbow. Most of that will come for when you're playing really loud, not for right now. Most everything is going to happen here in your wrist. But at the same time, be sure that these three fingers, your middle finger, the fourth finger, and the pinky, are very loose but wrapped around the stick. They're not actually gripping the stick. They're not actually holding the stick in place like that. My hand is very relaxed, and this is just kind of keeping the stick from moving too far when it swings. You'll see it when I play. Now the stroke in playing is just dropping your wrist. It's not using your arm to play, it's using your wrist. In bending your wrist up and down, that's where you'll get your stroke. And the key is you don't want to force it down, you don't want to hammer with your wrist. There you'll hurt yourself and cause permanent injury to your arms. You just want to drop the stick, and that's it. One of the best things that you could practice right off the bat is holding the stick properly, making sure your fingers are loose but still curled around, making sure that the grip here is not tight, but you are holding the stick securely so it has a fulcrum to balance on, and just drop the stick. The stick will bounce up, and you'll use these fingers to kind of catch the stick. Later on, you'll learn just to drop the stick and let it bounce. But if you're holding the stick wrong, that won't work. This is the sound you're looking for. And you'll notice that the stick bounces all the way back up to its starting point. Once you have that in the right hand, move over and start with the left hand as well. Now, I have the sticks up higher so you can see how this works. In practice, when you're playing in your concert band, when you're playing in the 5th and 6th grade bands, you need to have your sticks no higher than 4 inches above the head. Otherwise, you'll play louder than you're supposed to. The whole key to volume in playing is how high your sticks go. If you want to play softly, keep your sticks down low. If your director sees you playing like this, he'll probably take your sticks away because you're playing way too loudly. Keep your sticks 4 inches from the top of the drum and drop your sticks. All the fancy stuff you want to do as a drummer can be done with your sticks this close to the head. You'll notice I'll bring my sticks up a little higher for volume at times, but I can keep everything pretty close to the head. That's pretty much everything you need to know about how to play this drum and how to set it up to begin with. Remember, the drum is not something you just hit. It's an instrument and it's designed to play, not hit. Think of it as an instrument. Don't think of yourself as a drummer in some rock band somewhere. Remember, you're a concert drummer now. Play beautifully, the drum will sound great, and it'll sound great in the orchestra. Have a good time. Enjoy playing. If anyone has any questions, well, have your director talk to me and I'll help out. Thanks a lot, kids. Have a great year.